Hey there YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be making some Plains Indian style arrows. I make Comanche bows and these are the type of arrows. I'm just going to take you through how I make them. I've got the supplies here. You're going to need arrow shafts, these are wooden dowels, a measuring stick of some kind, measuring implement, turkey feathers. These are actually from sandhill cranes. I'm going to try to make some arrows with those and see how they fly. I think they're going to look really cool with these black gray feathers. Traditionally, I've always just made them with turkey feathers, like these ones right here. You're going to need wood glue here, artificial sinew or some kind of binding material, a clamp, scissors or something to cut with. All right, let's get started. All right, so you've got your shafts and you want to take tung oil finish. That's just what I use. You can use any kind of wood sealant. Just add it to a rag or a towel, anything. Get it on your rag or towel. You're going to take your arrow shaft and just run a whole coating over that, and what that does is it seals your wood against it just protects your wood from moisture and other things that you might encounter while you're shooting. And then you're going to let that dry for a day. This is how I add my nocks to the shaft of the arrow. I use a Dremel tool. If you'll notice here, I'm cutting against the grain, so across the grain. That just helps to strengthen where the nock is, and the string puts all the energy into the arrow. You can see here I'm just kind of rounding out the tips. I personally use a Dremel tool. It may not be the best. I know you can do it by hand. This is just how I've done it over the years. This is the method that I use to do it. It's quick and efficient. I can make a lot of arrows this way. Sometimes it requires a little bit of touch-up work, but and then all is left after that is to fit it to the string and make sure it fits correctly. Sometimes you'll have to adjust if it's too tight. When choosing the dowels or your arrow shaft, if you're going to use dowels, I like to find an arrow or a dowel that, number one, is straight. I hand select them by their straightness. And then also you want as much straight grain through the arrow. These little lines indicate straight grain, with as little run out as possible. You don't want the arrow to have a bunch of run out on it. Trying to see if there's any. So there's a little bit of run out. If you see where the triangle comes together, or like the tip of it, that's run out. So you want that to be facing basically towards you. So as it goes over your hand, if for some reason the arrow comes apart, it doesn't get stuck in your hand. So you want to have your nock, your runouts facing towards your nock. Another thing to notice about the nock is when you put the nock in, you can also see the grain lines. You want to make your nock run through, so basically up and down like this one is, through your grains. If you put your nock this way, when that string hits it, it can split the arrow on that, where that grain line is. So you want to go across the grain with your nock. Another thing we're going to do, and we'll talk more about it, is you want to wrap your fletching string up to where the nock is. And what that helps with is it keeps it from splitting the nock. It just like reinforces right here. And so I had to learn this the hard way. I was like, man, why do the people use all the string all the way up to these edges of these nocks? And the reason is your bowstring, there's so much power going into this nock, so much energy transfer. If you don't reinforce your nock right here, it'll split it. So the first thing you want to do with your feathers is make sure that your feathers are from the same wing of the bird. So if you're making arrows, you want to make sure you're using all feathers from the right or left wing. We have turkey feathers here. These are from turkeys that I've harvested, and really excited about these. I got these from a sandhill crane hunt, and I think they're going to look really cool, black and gray. Again, you need to make sure that they're from the same wing of the bird. You're going to want to split the feathers. You can cut them with a razor blade. You can split them with scissors. I've found the fastest way to do it for me. I go to the tip of the feather, I separate it out, and I just start pulling. And if you'll see that that feather will start separating from the top of the feather vein, or I'm not sure if it's called a stem or what, but it's pretty easy. And you'll just pull on that feather till it completely separates, just like so, and you'll be left with a bunch of feathers like this. And then you'll take your measurements. You might have to go back through and kind of clean up some of this stem here so it sits right on the arrow. It's the same with the crane feather. These are some that I've already split, but again, you're going to come to the tip of the feather, separate it at the tip, and just start pulling until that feather starts to split in half, just like this. And it's actually, these cranes really split apart really easy. But on these crane feathers, these are just from the tips of the wing. I'm probably gonna have to trim out some of this feather here. You can do that by just taking your scissors and kind of trimming away some of that excess stem, or I'm gonna have to find out what the word is, vein of the feather, and you'll just cut that away. And then you'll take your measurement. I like to have my fletchings at about 5 inches, so we'll use the measuring tape or the yardstick to measure out 5 inches, and they'll end up looking roughly something like this. You want to, when you cut those feathers, you're going to want to leave a little tag end of the vein of the feather, and that's where you're going to attach your sinew or string or yarn, not yarn, whatever implement you're using to tie these feathers to the shaft of the arrow. And that will end up looking something like this. So I'm going to pick out the section of the split feather that I really like, and I'm going to pick 5 inches. So I'm going to mark it with a Sharpie at 5 inches for the length of the feather. So you can, I don't know if you can see this mark here, but I've got a mark here, and then I've got a mark right here. That's going to be the length of the feather that I leave the feather on, and then we're going to leave a little bit of a tag end on either side to tie the fletching down to the shaft. So what that looks like is, from my mark, I'm going to go out about a centimeter to maybe 1/2 of an inch, snip the feather, and then I'm going to trim the feather along the edge just like that, so it leaves a little place to tie down. I'm probably going to end up trimming this up too because it's a little big from the original trimming, but you'll trim this down So it's a good size. And then again, we're going to go to our other mark, which is right here. We're going to go about 1/2 centimeter, or a centimeter's length, maybe 1/2 inch. I'm not really sure. Just kind of eyeball it. And then snip it off. You can just get rid of that. You don't need it. And so then from that mark, we'll go here and trim this feather up to 5 inches. So it'll end up looking like that. And I'm eventually going to trim this away as I tie it to the arrow. And then we'll do a fine measurement. But I'll find this other fletching here. And hopefully you can see that they're running the same angle, so they'll fly well. And let's check the length here. That looks about right in length, so they'll line up pretty good. So I've tried different fletching styles like shield, different shapes where they start out really small and then kind of get big, and those work. They work pretty well, but I kind of like the Comanche bows, just the short horse bows. And if you look at the pictures of the Plains Indians arrows, most of them were trimmed pretty short, the feathers. So we'll go ahead and just give this kind of a rough trim, and we'll end up doing more than this later, but this will just help us as we are going through the fletching process. So now you've got a rough trim like this. We'll end up probably almost cutting it in half again, so it has a low profile. So we've got our feathers peeled into fletchings. Just take note that their helix or their curve is all bending the same way. So all 3 of them, you want to have that bend. So when they fly, it flies straight. If you have a feather that the helix goes the other way, like if this was from the other wing, it would mess the flight up in the arrow. So you want them to cut through the wind, basically like a propeller on a boat. So we've got all our fletchings. We've got 4 sets of crane, got 6 arrow shafts, and then we'll do the rest out of turkey fletchings. But probably for the purpose of the video, I'll just do the crane. So this is how I fletch my arrows. I take the arrow shaft with the nock facing out, and with about 9 to 10 inches of the shaft out away from a table or whatever kind of work platform you have. I use a wood clamp to fasten the arrow shaft to the table. This just helps me keep a little bit of tension and hands free to wind the sinew around the fletchings. So I like to have everything staged. I've got my sinew here. I use tape to hold certain things in place as the arrows are drying. I put some wood glue down on, that's just cardboard, and then I usually use something, this is just a turkey vein from one of the feathers. I'll usually use something long and semi-rigid to spread glue along feathers or along the arrow shaft. I also, when I start fletching, I try to start about 1 inch from the nock. Okay, so you're gonna find about 1 inch from the nock. You're gonna put some glue, some wood glue down, and cover the arrow in that area, or the shaft. And then you're gonna take glue and you're gonna run it along the vein of the feather. This is gonna help attach it to the shaft of the arrow as you go. And you can also go back later and add some of this in before you finally tie everything down. So you're gonna coat this all the way. like so. All right, so you're gonna take your first feather, find in relation with the nock where you want it to be. I usually will start wrapping some of this sinew just to kind of get a bond like so. And you can smooth it over with the glue to help bond it all together. You're gonna place that feather where you want it. So in relation with the nock, and then you're gonna make your first couple of wraps on that section of the feather vane where we cut it earlier. Then you're gonna do the same process with your next feather. So we've got our second feather fletching ready. We're gonna put it on the shaft of the arrow where we want it. And we're gonna start making wraps on that feather as well. You're gonna take a little bit of that wood glue just to keep solidifying that bond. Okay, so that's your second feather on. Okay, so this is your last third fletching. You're gonna put it in place on the shaft where you want it. Trying to align it with the nock as best you can. And you're gonna make your final few wraps to keep that in place. And it can be a little tricky, the edges of these feathers. So once those are wrapped down, kind of pull them back here to help you. You're gonna start wrapping the sinew all the way down towards the nock. Again, using wood glue as you go, but you're gonna get all the way to the base of this nock with your sinew. And that's gonna help to reinforce the nock as it's coming off of the bowstring. All right, so we've got it worked all the way down. You're gonna keep wrapping the sinew either till your string runs out or you get it in line with the back of the nock, or the beginning of the nock. And I usually don't tie it down. Sometimes I will, but the glue will hold it in place as it binds everything together. So once all these feathers are in line, you're going to move to the front of the arrow. Make sure your feathers are as in line with your nock as you want them to be. Try to put as much tension on them as you can. And then you're going to put the sinew down the base of the feather and start wrapping. Making sure that all your feathers are in the spot where you want them to be. You start at the base and then wrap all the way forward, tying down the vane as well as going past the end of the feather. And again, just keep adding wood glue to that to bond everything. And just wrap it all the way down until you have a smooth transition with the sinew. And again, the wood glue is your friend. The more of it, the better. You don't want to goop it on there, but it's good to have that glue bonding everything. All right, the last thing I do is I take another strand of sinew. You could also use string to do this, but this is thin and I like it. Instead of gluing it, I'll tape this sinew down and I'll kind of slowly start loosely wrapping it until you get to the feathers, and then you're gonna pull the feathers apart and start tying down those veins. There's a little gap that'll be between the shaft and the feather, and you'll see them, but you just want to work your way down that feather using that string to push the vein of the feather against the shaft. Again, you just pull those apart and just start working your way down the shaft of the arrow and the feather, making sure that the feather is pressed against the shaft of the arrow. And you can leave these wraps attached if you want. It won't hurt the arrow. I end up taking them off. I just think they look better that way. And once you remove these, once you remove the string, the feather will go back to its normal place. So you work all the way down till everything is secured. And then with a loose wrap, you're gonna come down to the end, take your other piece of tape here just to hold that temporary wrap in place. And you're left with a fletched arrow. And once these dry, we'll clean them up, cut them to size. We'll probably cut this in half, and then later we'll add the tip, the broadhead or the target point to the arrow. Okay, so those took 20 minutes to dry. We're gonna remove the tape from both ends, and then we're just gonna remove that piece of string that held our feather to the shaft of the arrow, and it'll just kind of unwrap real easy, like so. It might catch in a few spots with the glue, but it'll always kind of pop free. And you just remove that string from the arrow. That'll give you a look at the arrow with the feathers on it. And like I said, we're gonna trim them almost in half. So get a good pair of scissors. And I like to do it over a trash can, but I'll just take these scissors, kind of line up where I want it to be, and I'll just start cutting off as straight as I can the shape of the fletching that I want. And you might have a few little rough spots that just need a little bit of cleaning up. And again, kind of choose where you want your fletching to be, and just as steady as you can, try to cut that feather. Last one. Okay, and that will leave you with a shortened down fletching. You can take coal with fire, like a stick with a burning end, and burn it down. I prefer the scissors. I just feel like I have more control of it, and then I'll just go back through and kind of tidy it up as I see fit. Another thing you can do is you can leave these tips on the arrow, or you can also kind of straighten them out and trim the tips down. So that is your finished fletched arrow. And next is putting the tip on, or the broadhead, or the field point. All right, the next thing you're going to do is take, I just have a pencil sharpener from Home Depot. Stick the end of your shaft in there. You're just taking it from a blunt staff shaft end to more of a, almost like a penciled tip. So now we're going to use JB Weld to bond the arrow. This is just what I use. You can use any kind of epoxy or glue that you see fit, but I just like to get...
The Plains tribes used metal arrowheads
your bonding
called trade points. They also would make them out of like a stagecoach wheel or a wagon wheel cover rim.
And then nail it. Really
I don't make my own trade points at this point. I would like to one day. I just haven't done it yet.
This stuff kind of
so what I use is just mail ordered fixed broadhead. It's a glue-on broadhead. Maybe one day if I have the tools, the correct tools to make the trade points, I will.
What I like to do is coat the tip of the arrow with some of the bonding or the JB Weld, like so. I'm gonna set this down, and I'm gonna take my broadhead, take the rest of the JB Weld, put it inside of the broadhead. All right, this is going to be one of the key parts of what you do with this arrow. So I like to just get it real mixed, bonded together, twisting it and turning it, trying to get air pockets out of it. And then I like to line it up with the direction that my arrow is going to be facing. So I'm going to try to get this in line with the nock. Press hard, then you're going to clean up the excess of your JB Weld. And I like to smooth it out with my finger. Okay, the next thing you want to do is look at the broadhead or your field point on the arrow and adjust it so that it's straight. This can take a little bit of maneuvering. That looks pretty straight, and then I like to spin it on my hand or something flat just to see if it looks like it's rotating well and straight. This one looks like it's pretty good. Okay, and then you're gonna let that dry for 5 minutes. So I'm just gonna set it down.
Okay, let's shoot them. thank you for watching. I hope you found this helpful, educational. Maybe learn a new way to do something with your arrows, or just learn how to. If nothing else, hope you found it entertaining.